Hey guys, Grumpy here. I just wanted to put together a short beginner's guide on how to manage multiple colonies. I see on on YouTube, on Reddit, like guides on how to establish your first colony, or I see like these glory posts of modded games with like 40 colonies, and then people are generating whatever 10 million credits a month, 20 million, whatever number you want to put in the game. But this is going to be a vanilla explanation of how colonies work individually, how they work collectively, and kind of how you can build your small empire and what you should go for in the beginning intro to the mid late game, like that transition period. Um, so here displayed are my 6 colonies. The way you get 6 colonies in vanilla is on your character screen. You have to take colony management. It is a industry perk. It is the last one. It allows you to personally govern one additional colony, and it allows you to hire one additional administrator. So because of that, I have 3 colonies being personally governed by myself, and then I have 3 administrators here. Now, the reason why you don't want to overextend, you can, but you don't want to, is because as I take more colonies over my limit, I get a management penalty malus. So what this means is every planet that I govern gets a -4 stability hit, which is really not good because that affects your profitability. The lower your stability is, the lower your profit is going to be. Okay, so that's why you want to take that perk. That's why you want to manage up to your limit. Now, if you have more than 10, say this planet had 12 stability, on if I had 4 worlds that I could guarantee to get 12 stability on, then I can take an additional colony, and then still have +10 stability, which would be really nice. So that is one way you can overextend safely. But you don't really want to do that because there are events that lower your stability, um, which can have cascading effects. So, um, I'm making this video because I recently discovered some things and I started putting it into practice. And I turned Arcad from, I think it was originally generating 50,000 credits, maybe 40,000 credits, something like that, to now generating well over 300,000 credits. And the way I did that was simple. Um, there are 3 things to know here. Your credit per month is determined by, well, 1, your stability, 2, your hazard rating, and then 3, that little line that says demand supplied in faction 0.51. This is what's going to determine how much money you make after like your exports and imports and all that is calculated. So your goal is to get all of your commodities to either be supplied on world or to be supplied in faction. If they're supplied on world, they don't cost your planet anything. If they're supplied in faction, then it adds to this. It goes into that demand supplied in faction value. So you want to keep that. The lowest you can get it to is 0.5. Okay. So the way you do that is you have to understand how commodities work. So when I first started playing the game, I thought, let's take supplies for example. I thought Arcad has 8 supplies, so on worlds, production and infrastructure, well, that consumes 3. Megaport, oh my gosh, that produces 6. That consumes 6. Way station, oh my god, that's another 6. Right? So I had installed AI cores on all of these, if it was an industry or a structure, I don't care if it required, a demand or an input or anything. I just put an AI core on it. And what happened was, because I had AI cores on all of my planets, what happened was, um, the Ludic Path took, they were immediately hostile to me. I mean, they were hostile already, but they immediately started planning sleeper cells and active cells against my colonies. The hegemony was launching investigations it felt like every 3 months. Tritachyon kept bothering me, right? I had all of these factions going after my planets, because on my original two planets were Elijah and Arcad, and between them I had like 16 gamma cores installed on my sectors. So I was like, there is no way the game is designed that you should be fighting like tooth and nail this aggressive to, just build like, these are like size 4 worlds, right? Really tiny, really, really tiny. I was like, I must be doing something wrong. So what I realized was, this 8 units of supplies is not divvied among, the megaport, the population, the way station. Um, it's not, that's not how that works. What it is it's an abstraction of resources. So one way you can think of it is, this 8 supplies is actually um 10 to the power of 8 supplies, right? So it'd be like 1,000,000 supplies essentially. um Megaport requires 6 supply, so 10 to the power of 6, so it just requires 10,000. Sorry if the math is wrong, I'm just doing it in my head, but that's just how the numbers work. So it only demands, out of that 10 million that you supply, 10 to the power of 6 would be 100,000. Out of that 10 million supply that Arcad produces, the Megaport only requires like 100,000. So you can supply that all day. The way station also requires another 100,000, right? So it can also be covered out of that 10 million pie that you have. The orbital station requires like 100 supply. The patrol HQ requires 10 to the power of 5 supply. So Arcad produces tons and tons and tons and tons of supply, and in fact, it produces on its own enough supply to cover all of my colonies. None of my colonies require more than 7 supply. Elijah's a little different because I have a military base on there, but none of my planets require even close to the 8. So if I wanted to, I could basically, what I did was I focused on Arcad, and I just produced as many supply in one area as possible, so that it covers my entire colony. So no matter what colony I'm on, it's covered by Arcad. So Elijah produces its own supply, but Ghost, there's no heavy refinement on this planet, or heavy industry on this planet, right? But we still get the supplies that we need because it's supplied in faction. So once you understand how these commodities work, what you should use your AI cores for is for something like this. Once you understand how sorry, I'm just skipping ahead. Once you understand how your colonies work, how commodities work, you can build colonies so that like you have things like this, where Osiris specializes in volatiles. So they produce 7 volatiles using a domain era item. I found this. I think I battled some redacted fleet for it. I don't really remember where it came from, but it produces plenty volatiles. The domain era item combined, they produce 7 volatiles. So that 7 volatiles basically provides all demand I need for all the rest of the planets. So for Arcad, Elijah, every planet that demands volatiles, it's covered. So that's what you should look for when you settle additional worlds is how do I round out my how do I round it out so that my demand supplied in faction is as low as possible. Is that 0.5. So one way you do that is you specialize worlds, right? But you probably aren't going to be able to do that once you'll probably only have like 1 or 2 colonies, maybe 3 colonies at most, at the very start of the game. So one of the ways you can help get this lower is if I remove this AI core, and this is what you should use AI cores for, is you'll now notice that Arcade requires 10 to the power of 6 metals. Also requires 10 to the power of 4 transplutonics. None of my worlds can produce that, right? My highest producing world is Valor and Wraith, which produce 10 to the power of 5 each. So that's all they can produce. So total they can produce 10,000 metals between the both of them. This is not enough to supply Arcade with the demand it needs. So what I can do is, and also you notice, if we go to our credits per month, it actually went down because now our demand supplied in faction is 0.57 instead of the 0.51 that it was. So what I can do is I can install an AI core to lower it down, and now you see that the demand supplied in faction is now low enough, 5 and 3, to meet the demand that the orbital works requires, which is 5 and 3, which also lowers our demand supplied in faction because we're no longer importing from outside of our faction. As a result, we make more credits per month. So that is how commodities work. That's how your plants work together. And now on to the money making aspect. So the reason why Arcade is such a wonderfully profitable colony is because of its exports. After you get, your essentials established, you want to identify, when choosing a planet, you want to identify uh, its strengths, right? Like, what can I do to make this planet as profitable as possible? Okay, well, Arcade has ultra rich rare and ultra rich ore deposits. It has no atmosphere. It has extreme heat, right? Like it is the perfect world, um, for settling, and it was the reason why I chose this system that I settled in. But you want to maximize every positive that it has. So mining, because I'm already getting +3 +3, I put a mining item, autonomous mantle bore, on it. So I get an additional +3 on it. Now the way you can use this item is if you find this item, but you do need the ore somewhere else, like it's not an ultra rich planet, but you need the ore for refining, you can put it down on a subpar world and make it a par world, right? But because I had this world settled and because I had this item and I want to maximize my profit, I stuck it on this item and stuck it on this planet. And now this planet produces, just from ore, just basic ore, we produce 15%, which is the largest market share, and it generates 39,000 credits for us. Just for ore, just for regular ore, before you refine it, before you do anything else. Just for regular basic ore. Same thing, transplutonics. This produces 60,000 by itself. Just because we produce so much of it, all of it just gets exported to market. All of it. And it also has the benefit of covering the demand of all the rest of our planets. So we never have to import ores from other planets because we have it in droves. Then fuel. Same thing. So fuel production, because we found that gas giant, I can now stick fuel onto this world, and it can produce 3 additional units of fuel. Same thing with the orbital works. Um, and the reason why I stuck all these high profit, and I mean mining is not really high profit, but because it has such a good base, I went with it. I kept it there because I stuck all these on one planet. My fourth and final industry was gonna be commerce. And the reason why you want to put commerce on your planet is because it doubles your income essentially. It doesn't double it, multiplies it by 1.5. But because I have another domain item on it, Dealmaker Holosuit, it adds an additional 50% to my value. So basically, all these things combined work together. All these exports get multiplied by commerce, and then um, because the last thing I need to do to maximize the amount of money that I make is I need to max out my stability. But basically, that's how you make money with a worlds. You want to stack it as much as possible, and then stick commerce on top of it. So that's something that I'm going to be doing. I'm going to transition the rest of my worlds over. So Ghost is another example of a world that I'm going to stick commerce on because it has light industry. So it is a organics producing world. So we get organics out of the ground. Unfortunately, I can't use a bore on it because it's a habitable world. If I could, I would, but I can't. But it produces, all the recreational drugs, luxury goods, and domestic goods for my entire colony. And then it has an item on it, which increases it by +3. So because this is a profitable world, I am going to wait until this hits colony size 5 or colony size 6, and then my last industry is going to be commerce. And then those two combined will bring this 77 credits or 77,000 credits up to probably about like 200,000. So that's how your worlds work together. That's how your colonies work together. And then that's how you make money with them. The final step, um, and this is a little more advanced, and I'm not at this stage yet, but the last thing you do is in order to increase this income, you have to raid these worlds. You can start with the pirates. You can take them out of the market. You can destroy them. Essentially, you can destroy, the Umber pirates, the Kanai pirates, or whatever. And as you knock people out, as you take over the worlds, as you destroy their infrastructure, it leaves fewer and fewer producers in the market, which means you have a larger market share. And as your market share gets larger, basically the way you generate this number is, I believe it's market share times global market value times your access, so something like that. But basically that's the more advanced. That's like late game, and you don't have to do that. But for right now, the things you need to understand is, one, commodities are an abstraction. Basically, they're not one to one. They're like powers of 10. So, two, specialize your worlds and then let them complement each other so that you lower your in-faction demand supplied in-faction rate as low as possible. You should aim for 0.5 if you can. And then three, maximize your exports by finding domain era items, stacking them on one world, and then applying commerce to it. And if you have, the commerce item, also using that to increase it. Limit your AI core usage. The only time you should use it is if you're on the cusp of demand, and using an AI core would lower your demand just enough so that it would be supplied in faction versus out of faction. If you apply an AI core and it doesn't make a difference, don't use it because the amount of money that you save is not worth the additional aggro that you're going to generate. So yeah, that's my um, semi-comprehensive beginner's guide to how to manage a cluster of colonies. I hope that helped you guys. It definitely helped me out. I'm going to be applying that to all of my worlds. Hopefully, I've brought my income up from negative. I think when I started, I was making like minus 70,000 credits a month, and now I make uh yeah 300 and I made 385,000 last month, and it would have been higher, but I think I ordered a Paragon because I haven't had one yet, and I really wanted to test drive it. But yeah, hopefully that helps you guys out. Grumpy out. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I'd be happy to answer them. If I didn't cover something clearly enough, please let me know. I'd be happy to make another guide, kind of explaining more in detail, or like, you know, more into the nitty gritty of how things work. I'd love to help you guys if you do have problems with your own colonies. I'd love to like fix it for you guys. Whatever you can think of, leave it in the comments. Yeah, Grumpy out.